Welcome back to Disturbing the Priest. I'm your host, Brandon Battick, and we're joined here with the singer of Ravage, amazing Boston band. What's going on, Al? How's it going?
Not too much. Thanks for having me on.
Of course. So we finally made it work. We were going to do Zoom, but it's like, fuck this. I'm so sick of Zoom. Finally a band in my area. And you guys are local legends, so I cannot wait to get into this. So Spider on the World is the newest release. Very fucking excellent record. Maybe the band's best. Possibly, probably.
Some might say.
Some may say. So what made it time for that fourth record?
Well, I guess depending on who you talk to, some consider it our third record, which our never released third record or something like that. Because we put out full length. Our first real full length was Spectral Rider back in 2005. Then we actually came out with the album that we put out on Metal Blade, The End of Tomorrow, and then we re-recorded Spectral Rider. So, and we called it Return of the Spectral Rider, but it was really just a re-recording of Spectral Rider.
Yeah.
So this is really our third full-length album.
Yeah, which is so what made you interesting? Yeah, so I always considered it as like a studio, like another studio record, but what made you want to record Return of the Spectral Rider?
There's a whole story.
Whole backstory to it
behind that.
Do you want to give the cliff notes?
The quick version is we recorded this demo called Curse of Heaven back in 2002, 2003, and that was the first demo that we were happy with. It ended up being an EP we put out. It got us some notoriety in a few different circles, in the underground, whatever. But when it came to, we want to put out a full length, a lot of the labels we were talking to, these underground labels, were like, well, why don't you just add a couple of songs to that album, that EP, and call it an album, put that out. And we didn't want to do that. So... And for various reasons, one of which was because we didn't have a drummer at the time, and the drums on that are all fake. They're a robot drummer, which was not what we wanted to do ultimately. But we got the recording done in the best way that we could at the time, with no money. So, still having no money, we went to re-record the stuff in a cheap way that we we spent all the money that we had, but it just didn't come out how we wanted it to. We put it out at the urging of this label we were working with, but it was a real mess. And so from the before the time that album even came out, we wanted to re-record it. And then we approached re-recording it in various ways, but we never really had the opportunity until we kind of built our own studio and did things properly, which ended up being 10 years later, or something, 2017.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I was always curious. I always saw that as like the next studio record, because I know a lot of bands will do that. A lot of bands will turn EPs into records or re-record stuff and add a couple like new stuff, new things, new tracks. But I guess we're with the time now where it's all new, fresh stuff. I know I want to get on the talk about the vinyl in a bit, where you have the double LP with World War IV in it. And really excellent, really cool idea. I don't think a band's really done a lot of that stuff or like that specific thing. But Spider on the World, I think, is fantastic. And I'd love to get into, like, how long was this record in the works?
Yeah, I think the plan was to put it out. The Return of the Spectral Rider album, my original plan for that was we'll make that a bonus album. It's just an add-on for this album. So this was supposed to come out before that. So that goes back to 2017, I think.
Yeah.
But we hadn't actually recorded this album. We didn't actually record it until the pandemic. What was your original question?
How long was the record?
How long has it been in the works?
Yeah.
When we came back from the End of Tomorrow tour, U.S. tour, we had a demo for the song World War IV that we played for our drummer, Pete Weber. I remember going to his house after that tour. We came back. It was a disastrous tour. We came back. We were like, oh, well, we got this cool new music. we're gonna record it, and hopefully Metal Blade will put it out and stuff. We played him the demo. It was like, oh man, that's really awesome. But you know what, guys? I joined another band. I'm going to Colorado to play with this band Havoc, and that became that. So yeah, some of the songs go way back, and it's another one of those things where we never had the chance to record them properly. Like "Spider on the World," the song is actually a song that goes back to the 2002. We were playing that song.
Interesting.
Yeah,
so what's the oldest like song on that record? Is it "Spider on the World"?
It's not.
No,
it's not.
Are we talking the 90s right now?
This stuff that goes back to the 90s, sadly, and kind of, yeah. The song Ravage Part, what we call it, Ravage Part 2, I think.
Yeah.
Ravage the Earth, which was actually supposed to be the original, was going to be the title.
My
track.
favorite song on the record, too.
Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting. It was supposed to be called, my proposal to the band was, let's record a double album called Ravage the Earth and Ravage in Peace. So Ravage the Earth is supposed to be the title track of the first album, and Ravage in Peace is going to be the title track of the second album. But the band came back to me and was like, nobody's going to buy a double album. Nobody wants a double album. It's too long. It's too boring. So we ended up shaving some of the songs and using them as bonus tracks on the vinyl version. But that song, Ravage Part 2, goes way back to like 1997. That's one of our earliest songs, yeah. So it's got that kind of punk bridge in the middle.
Oh, for sure. Well, I feel like a lot of the band's older sound is very like British new wave, very punk. So I did get a bit of that, and I wasn't sure if that was a reference to the old sound, but it literally just is the old sound.
Yeah, that's like.
But that's really cool.
Those lyrics are some of the probably the first lyrics I ever wrote, and yeah, that's
interesting.
That was an ancient song. We were trying to get rid of the backlog of stuff that we had that we liked and we thought was good material, and we never recorded properly. So there were a couple of those on there, and then there are a lot of brand new songs that we never even touched before we recorded them, like Man-Made Ice Age. That's a brand new song, and
which is a great way to like start the record.
Yeah, and that wasn't supposed to be the first song on the album. It wasn't until we recorded the whole thing and we were like, oh, that's actually a really good song. We should put it first. Okay.
Fuck it.
It was going to be another intro, fun intro. And let's just fucking go right into it with that song. So that's how that worked out, yeah.
Nice. Wow. So is there any more backlog, or is that it?
That pretty much cleared out the backlog, but there's still probably one or two songs that are kicking around, but I don't know if we'll actually end up recording them because the band is kind of like, we need to just focus on fresh new material with this lineup that we have, and that's kind of what we've been doing for the last couple of months, putting new stuff together.
Awesome. So we were talking about some of the writing, but I'm curious about the recording process. So how did that go? How smooth was it?
It's another one of those things where we thought it was going to be smoother than in the past. It ended up getting, as it always is with us, it ends up getting dragged out. I guess at various times we've said to ourselves, we're going to just do everything organically, and we're going to... the problem we had was that we had a new member of the band, basically a new drummer, always seemed to have a shifting rhythm section, but at least for the last few years, we finally gotten a stable rhythm section. It was always a case where like we'd record and then the drummer would quit immediately after the recording or immediately after the tour, not want to do the tours. So we always have to deal with that. But in this case, we finally had a solid lineup. So it was kind of like, let's record, with this lineup and do it in the best way possible. And we looked at a lot of different ways, like on Return of the Spectral Rider, that's all real drums. That's all was recorded in a basement, but by us, but it's all real drums. This time, we went back to the sort of triggering thing, and it's not the way we necessarily wanted to do it, but it came out okay. I think the next recording will be all real drums again.
Okay.
We're gonna just get into a studio and just record things the way they're supposed to be. But this ended up being the drums took forever. I mean, we should have just done real drums because we recorded them and then we re-recorded them. Then we went back and edited them a million times. So next time we're just going to record the drums. But yeah, it's always seems to be we think we're going to do things kind of in a a pretty straightforward way, and then things get turned around, and that's our recording life is hell. So
yeah, man. And I'm really glad they turned out as good as they did. I think this album sounds excellent. I'd love to know a little bit about the production of the record. How hands-on are you guys when it comes to production?
I think we'd like to be less hands-on. I think we'd like somebody to just take over and record us for once.
Yeah.
Because mostly for budgetary reasons in the past, my brother Eli, who's the guitarist, he does most of the producing, engineering, I should say. What I didn't want to happen, I like to record vocals with somebody else, to bounce stuff off of, harmonies and that sort of thing. In this recording, I actually recorded all the vocals myself. Because it was done during the pandemic, everything was kind of done remotely. So I was in this room we're in right now.
This exact room.
This is the exact room right where you're sitting right now, with like a vocal setup, one of those kind of weird
the booths
box things.
Yeah.
And a microphone, and it was just me and a laptop recording those vocals, which, it took me a while to do it that way because I'm used to bouncing it off somebody. Just either in the past, we used Pete Ruccio, who he actually ended up mixing the album. He was the one who mixed the End of Tomorrow record. And he's got a lot of experience with classic metal vocals. Like, he's a big King Diamond guy. He actually re-recorded King Diamond's Spider's Lullaby album.
Really?
Himself, note for note.
Wow.
And sang the whole thing.
That's fucking awesome.
It's completely insane.
That's really awesome.
So he knows about metal vocals.
Yeah.
I've done recording over the years, and I recorded one album myself alone, vocally, which was called Steel Maid, which is like a classic, accept style German band that I sang for a little while. We just recorded one album. That's all we ever did, and I recorded that myself. But I'd rather. For the next recording, we're actually going to go in a studio. We're going to have a producer of some kind who knows what he's doing and get the stuff recorded properly. But I think it came out pretty well for what it was.
Yeah, it came out great, man. And what were you using on your computer? Were you using like Audition, Pro Tools?
We don't use Pro Tools. We use what's Apple's program?
Fuck, what is that? I'm completely blanking.
Yeah.
All right, Apple has a recording software.
Yeah,
and it's what was used. So that was used for the whole record?
I don't know if Ruccio mixes on Pro Tools. He might, but pretty much I think everybody uses the Apple stuff. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. So what was the creative chemistry of the band when writing this record? And has it always been the case for creative chemistry, or was it different for this record?
I think, I've been really lucky that I've encountered some musicians over the years. My brother, who's a guitarist, and our guitarist Nick, who's been with the band since 2001 now, so 25 years or so. They've always been really good writers. So we had those two guys in the band, and pretty much they would come up with a song almost completely, bring it to us. I'd come up with a vocal for it and lyrics, and that would be a song. So most of our writing was done that way. Then when Tommy, the bass player, came into the band, he's a writer in his own right. He kind of writes different kinds of music. He does like a lot of surf rock and stuff.
Oh, nice.
So we were interested to see if he came up with something good, but he actually came up with some really good songs, very like, kind of basic traditional metal Iron Maiden type stuff he does. So
any songs off the top of your head
that he writes?
Yeah.
He wrote Amazon Burning.
Nice.
And he wrote which is, we call it the Tommy songs, The Derelict City, which is cool. On our last sort of EP.
Yeah.
So he always comes with like short, sweet, very Iron Maiden-y type songs. So I like his songs. I'm pushing him to write more, and then and we never play him live because we avoid the short songs. Yeah. We somehow always avoid the short songs. So writing wise, That's it. Those guys usually bring a almost fully formed song to us, which makes it less complicated when you're going to record, because you already know what the demo is. You're once everybody hears the vocals, then they kind of get familiar with the song, and they add their little pieces to it. Like you can add your own bass line, and you can add your own drum fills and stuff. But that's the way we've done it up until this point. This new album that we're working on is probably going to be a little more collaborative, just because we finally, for once, have a band where we're actually practicing, we're actually jamming, and we're all together all the time, and nobody's quit yet. So half the rhythm section hasn't walked out. So it should be more collaborative a little bit, but basically the guitarists are bringing us demos and we're jamming them out and that sort of thing. So,
and you're talking about the 4th album, but technically the 5th.
However you want to look at it. Yeah.
So it was always written very assembly line-esque, where one person would do their part, send it to the next guy, he would do his part.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Do you have a favorite track off the new album?
Yeah, it's hard for me to pick a favorite.
It's like picking your favorite kid,
Yeah.
I can see how it's difficult.
Yeah, the songs I go back to and listen to the most, I guess, I like Without a Trace.
Yeah.
Which is a song that since we've recorded it, we've never even played it. So I don't know if we're ever going to play that live. Because it's one of those things. But obviously the songs that we play live are Ravage in Peace, Man-Made Ice Age, Sign of the Spider. So those are the songs I kind of gravitate towards. Short, sweet, stuff I can get into and listen to on the fly. Some of the longer songs, but yeah.
No Iron Maiden 8-minute prog tracks in the future? Or 17
I wouldn't
minutes?
say that. These guys are always pushing for longer songs. I'm probably pushing for them to cut them down. So
I got the record of the new album. It's like 4 LPs. It's ridiculous. Just can we get the 2 LPs for just fucking?
It's working for them.
Hey, if it works, it works, man. Like a band that big, they can get away with it, I guess. Yeah, and I do love the and it's so funny how the bandmates were like, no double LP, and even with a 40-minute record, you still ended up putting out a double LP, which is really cool. And I like the idea of getting a little bonus on the record. And I think I heard you say once that the art that was going to be on the other record is in on the back or in the gatefold, I believe, which is really cool.
Yep. If you look at the gatefold, that is supposed to be the Ravage in Peace artwork.
Yeah.
The Ravage the Earth artwork is the spider attacking the Earth, which is ended up on the cover.
Yeah.
Yeah, we commissioned 2 artworks from Andreas Marshall, who is known for his stuff with Creator.
Amazing artist.
And Blind Guardian, and done a bunch of great stuff. It was funny because I contacted 3 or 4 artists because we were like, who should do the artwork on the next album?
Which ones?
I'm trying to remember. Not as well known guys, and he was the first one who got back to us and was like, yeah, sure, I'll do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. Artists are funny because sometimes they'll they're right on the ball and on their business stuff, and and other times, I've already tried to contact an artist about the next album and got no response. So it's like, okay.
That sucks. So we're full swing on the next record, because I was curious, are we gonna have to wait another 10 years, another 8 to 7? But it seems like you guys are already full swing.
Well, we said that in 2017. It'll be right around the bend. 2018 album's coming out. It ended up coming out in 2020.
Something's gonna happen. An asteroid's gonna hit. Boston's gonna burn down. So I do want to ask about your lyrical themes. There's a lot of course, global warming's a big theme. I'd love to know what your biggest inspirations are lyrically, and maybe not other bands, but pop culture and other elements.
Well, it's funny you should say that about global warming, because I think a lot of people misinterpreted the lyrics.
Really?
We got some flack. I remember when New Wave of traditional heavy metal full albums posted the album. Just reading through the comments on there, somebody put, I think CNN wrote the lyrics of this album.
That's what I assumed the first track was about.
And the irony is, those lyrics are about people not getting along. The climate change is the political climate change. It's like if we don't get along with each other, if we're constantly arguing about political shit, we're not going to be able to solve the problems. If there's global warming, then you're not going to we're all just going to fry.
Yeah.
So that's the irony, is that's what those lyrics are about. So a lot of the theme of the whole album is people not getting along and what's going to happen if you don't get along and if you don't at least listen to each other. Because coming out of the pandemic, it was like I was just disgusted with online dialogue and just the vitriol that comes out of people when they're behind a screen and you can't discuss anything without people getting keyboard smashing and
a lot of keyboard warriors out there.
So that was people can't talk to each other anymore, and that's going to be a big problem for us as we're tackling whatever is coming down the line, pandemics and World War
4,
3.5.
Yeah.
So that was kind of the theme of that album. So
cool.
Lyrically going forward, it's just I've always kind of looked at what's going on in the world, which right now is all kinds of crazy shit. AI mostly, and its effect on people and its effect on culture and computers and the internet, and that's effect on culture. And is the internet conscious?
Yeah, there's so much material now. There really is,
and that's just reality. So then you take that and you put it into the kind of the metal fantasy filter, and that's where I get my lyrics. Yeah.
Interesting. So I do want to, I want to touch on some of the early demos and some of the early era of the band. I assume you got into metal through MTV, like Headbangers Ball, or were you brought to a record store and you picked out the coolest record?
No, actually, the first album I got when I was a kid was probably the La Bamba soundtrack. I think. So that and I thought the guitarness of it was cool. So maybe that was a precursor. But when I was a kid, because I was growing up in the late '80s, I was born in '81. So my first taste of metal was actually my cousin. Not even hearing the metal music, we went down to his room. He lived in a suburban house in Stoughton, Mass. And for some reason, my brothers and we all went down to his room, I think, to see his artwork, because he was an artist. And he had this crazy drawing on the wall that he'd done in pencil of this fleshless guy with glowing eyes. And I was like, what the, I got nauseous just looking at it, because I was like 6 years old. And I never forgot it. And then years later, I think when I was probably 12 years old, it was about 6 years later, I heard the Black Album by Metallica. And that's what kind of hardcore got me into metal. I was like obsessed with Metallica as a 12-year-old. And then I started looking for other bands, and I was like, what was that band that had that the cousin used to listen to that had that fleshless guy on the cover, and that ended up being Iron Maiden. So then I became obsessed with Iron Maiden, and then it went from there. But also between that time, MTV was playing Alice Cooper's Poison video and 18 Life by Skid Row. So I was exposed to that, even though we were kind of like my brothers and I, we liked all the stuff that MTV was playing, like Tom Petty and that sort of stuff. But where I really got into metal was Metallica's Black Album, I think, and then getting into Iron Maiden from there and beyond. So.
Yeah, and then you wanted to take, was it drum lessons? It's hard to keep track of your musical talent, because I feel like there's several instruments you can play, and I'd love to know the timeline of each one.
Our parents put us into piano lessons, my brothers and I, so we were doing piano and recorder and singing lessons when we were kids. And then from there, and I was always terrible at piano. I was like no good at piano. Of course, my brothers became guitarists, and I was terrible at piano. younger brother, Eli, who's the guitarist in the band, he's a really good guitarist. My older brother's like a punk guitarist. But so from there, I wanted, when I got listening to MTV and Skid Row and Alice Cooper, I was like, I need to start playing guitar. So I got a guitar for Christmas one year, and picked it up, started trying to tune it, tried playing it for a few days and put it down, never touched the guitar again. My dalliance with the guitar was not long lived. Then a similar situation happened with drums, and that I did kind of take up because, drums, you learn one beat and then you're rolling, you can just kind of smash drums. So, so I've been playing drums since I was 12 years old. So probably like almost 28 years, 30, something around there. Yeah, 30 years. Yeah. So that's pretty much it. Drums and singing a little bit, and that's my musical.
Okay, so
fooling around with the keyboard a little bit, but that's it.
Yeah, and I'm waiting for the album where we can get some synth. So where in that timeline were you like, I want to start a band or be in a band?
So let's see, and it's funny because I'm still in that band. It came from which, for good or for bad or for better for worse.
For us, better. Yeah.
Thank you. I think I was right around the time that I got the drums, so it was probably around 12 years old. I was like, I got these drums, I'm playing, I learned a beat, and now I got to start a band. So pretty early on, I don't know where it was. I saw Ravage in some book, and I thought, well, how has nobody ever had a metal band called Ravage? It was like, I better go to the record store and see if there's a band called Ravage. Yeah. So I looked in R, couldn't find it anywhere, and I was like, wow, I can use that name. Wow, that's cool. This is not the most metal name for a band ever. It means destruction. I don't know. I think. You could have called the band Destruction, but there's already
unfortunately taken. Yeah.
Maybe I saw Destruction in an album rack or something.
Yeah.
And then basically, so that was the origin of the band. It was just me and a drum set, just playing in the attic with the logo, which is something like the Ravage logo, painted on the drum head. And then
did you make the logo? Did you sketch it out?
We've gone through a bunch of different logos over the years, and I've changed it, and other people have changed it. So the final incarnation of the logo is my design, which was also altered by a guy we knew. And it's a terrible logo. I mean, I
think it's pretty sick.
It looks kind of cool, but it's not technically it's not a good logo. It kind of, the R is leaning on the other letters. They're kind of in a weird.
Well, I think it has that thrash point to it. I can't really describe it, but it seems very thrashy, and I think the shininess is very power metal. Maybe not power metal, but speed metal. I think it looks sick.
Yeah, I hadn't really thought of it, but I guess the flaws kind of make it our own,
Flaws.
It's totally unbalanced and weird, and it's got this it's got a little thing in the R which doesn't make any sense. When the Curse of Heaven demo came out, we showed it to the bass player who had just joined the band, and he's like, "Why does it say Babbage?" Oh shit! Because we had moved it a bit to try to make it look cooler, make it more balanced. It just made it totally look like Babbage.
Oh, that's funny. So at what point did you put together the Black Horizon demo?
Oh, Black Horizon. Oh, geez.
Because that's what is there 30 fucking songs on that? And there's how many of those are covers too? Because there's some Priest covers on there.
Oh boy,
that is a packed. I think that's the biggest demo I've ever. The biggest first demo.
See, we didn't put that together actually.
Really?
The story with that is that in the 90s, I would just record every one of our practices on a cassette tape. 2 tracks. We set up a microphone here, microphone there. We had this old cassette recorder that we got at the flea market. And we would just record every practice, and then I would take those practices, and if something sounded pretty good, I'd cut it together like as a mixtape with other songs. So after a year of this, we had kind of like a demo of those tracks, and just stupid covers, us fooling around, like just on the fly. Like, let's play Breaking the Law. Let's play Rebel Yell by Bill Idol. You know? It's like, if you don't even know
there's some crazy diversity on that
we haven't
demo.
ever heard that song in years. Let's try playing. So, because at that point, we were kind of like a three-piece. I was playing drums and singing most of the time at the same time. My brother was playing guitar or bass, and we had another guitarist, John, who was the first guitarist, who actually wrote that part of Ravage the Earth. The end of that funk.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that goes back to him.
That's crazy.
Yeah. John the Ogre. Because he was tall and he had long blonde hair. And we had a black metal band with him at the time, too.
Awesome. What was the band called?
The black metal band?
Yeah.
We should have kept that going because we'd probably be like in the annals of black
Boston
metal.
black metal. I don't think Boston has a black metal scene, unfortunately. That'd be great. Believe me.
Oh yeah, there's just as little black metal around here as there was regular metal. So there was this brother or priest who was on like the Catholic network. And we used to watch him his show, and he was like this really kind of nerdy. But we thought he had a cool name, Father Greshel, so we called the band Father Greshel. So we had a proto black metal band, Father Greshel.
That's so great. If only he knew.
Yeah. He's probably long gone, but
he's trying to inspire faith, but he inspired a black metal band. That's great.
And there will be a Father Greshel reunion now. So
Maybe you can do a reunion at his funeral. You know,
his funeral 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, we used to cover Countess Bathory, I think, and
nice
something else. I don't.
Maybe some Dark Throne mayhem. Yeah.
Was that before anybody around here heard of that Dark Throne? Probably it was 1995.
Yeah,
96.
that's true because we're talking like 90s. Yeah, and that's so interesting. That's so funny. Okay, so you did have a few, some singles, some EPs. But when was it time? How do you remember, starting that debut record? And it's like, okay, let's do the debut. We have everything in order. Was that a 5-year process as well? So what was the road to the first record?
So, yeah, if you think about it, it was about from the formation of the band. We played our first show in November 1996.
Yeah, so that's like 6-7 years before the first album?
So about 10 years because it was
10 years.
The first album came out in 2005.
Oh, yeah. Oh, shit.
And we recorded it probably in 2002 2003, I think. So it took a couple of years to come out because we were dealing with a small German label who didn't have any money. We didn't have any money, and they didn't have.
Are they still around?
They are kind of around. They turned into what's called Pure Steel Records.
Okay.
It was Carthago Records, and they partnered with Pure Steel, and so I think they've kind of gone out of business. So they're just kind of a distro. A lot of those small European labels are distros. They're just kind of like they carry a bunch of old records. You can buy records from them, and then they'll put out either reissues or new ones if they find it. So, and those guys are still around. But what was I going to say?
First album,
yeah. Which was kind of like the the story from hell. We had our guitarist Nick was working at a Brooks or basically like a CBS, and his boss was doing some recording. We had a full lineup at the time where we had an actual drummer. We were playing a lot of shows around here, a lot of terrible shows, unattended shows with like ska bands and punk bands because there are no traditional metal
probably
bands.
Some new metal bands too, right?
New metal, a lot of new metal. Yeah,
God.
That's all there was around that. So we were
especially
just
like 90s, early 2000s. I can't imagine.
That's what it was. There was not. This is before it was probably after Iron Maiden reformed, but. It was a bleak local scene. for traditional metal or even death metal and stuff. It was just like just new metal basically.
Yeah.
So anyway, he had this pretty sweet recording setup, but it was in East Boston in a small room, like a room as big as this. So he was like, we could try to do drums remotely, but really, if you want to have the best sound, we should probably do robot drums. And you're like, oh no, just samples.
Which was a sin back in the day for...
Well, not only that, but at the time, the drummer who was in the band, he was like running the band. He was the driving force behind getting us shows and kind of
almost like a manager.
Yeah.
Interesting.
For better or for worse. I mean, he wasn't getting us good shows, but he was getting us shows. And he was,
some bar shows. All bar shows.
Yeah, it was all like...
Starting out, especially like in the late 90s, early 2000s, like I can't imagine what this scene looked like.
You don't want to imagine.
Yeah, with the state it is in now,
Yeah. I guess what's cool now is that nationally there are bands. There are bands that come through. Post-pandemic, there aren't as many venues anymore, but there's traditional metal out there. Like if you want to travel to Houston, see Hell's Heroes, then you can see a good selection of really good underground traditional heavy metal bands. You can go to the Palladium, see some bands opening for, whatever. Yeah. And if you go to Ralph's,
Worcester, great scene.
You'll see some cool stuff.
Hotel Vernon also.
Back then, none of that existed. It was like there was no traditional heavy metal bands anywhere.
Yeah.
So, like, I could probably count on my two hands the bands I could think of in the mid '90s who were playing traditional metal in the United States.
In just not just Boston, but
the country, and Canada,
and
probably Mexico,
probably
this hemisphere,
Well, I think you made a good investment because it's really made a massive comeback. I think.
Yeah, I mean, our whole thing was, we'll bring this music back, and we just came back. We existed, it came back, and nobody paid us. We just disappeared.
Yeah.
But we're still here. The music's here, and that's all that matters,
Oh, for sure. So that first record.
Yep. Back to the first record.
Back to the first record.
Yeah.
So, you were talking about the recording, getting a drum machine and stuff. So kind of reflect on putting those songs together, picking what songs in the hundreds of songs in the past, what to choose for that record, and the recording process, because you were saying it was a little hellish.
Yeah, we always thought we had a good selection of songs. Like we always thought that kind of, if we can only get these songs recorded right, then, that'll catapult us to, if not, superstardom, but sort of where we wanted to be in the pantheon of metal, like, just being in the book of heavy metal, But we could never get the songs recorded properly the way we wanted. There's always a problem. So we made this demo. So what happened was we had this guy, Jack. He had a nice recording setup. We were all set to record us, but he said, drums are a problem. We go to the drummer. We say, this just making a good recording is going to help us along. He's like, I'm out of here. So he was not. So we ended up recording that album without a drummer. We bring in a new rhythm section because the bassist flew the coop too. Bring in a new rhythm section, and we were lucky enough that we had played a show with this group of kids. There were this 3-piece band, which was really awesome. It was one of the only bands around that we were like, oh, well, who are these guys? These are like super. These guys are awesome. They're playing more death metal, technical death metal, but this stuff is great. We should play more shows with these guys. They were called Cryptic Warning.
Oh, nice.
So we were like, when we were without a drummer, we were like, who's the best drummer around? This kid Phil from Cryptic Warning. We'll ask him. He's like, he was thrilled to join these old guys in Ravage. I was like, wow, you're like an established metal band.
And we're talking about the first record.
Yeah. This is the first record, 10 years after the beginning of the band. So we ended up recording. I found this other kid who was going to record the drums. He was like, "Oh no, I got no problem recording drums." And he was like a high school kid. I can do the whole setup. I'll record it all professionally. It's going to sound great. I record my own band. My old band. My own band is called Devil in the Kitchen. We played some shows with them. They were a folk metal band. So like, oh, this is kind of a scene for me there. We got a folk metal band. We got a death metal band.
There's some diversity. Yeah.
Yeah, this is getting pretty cool. We got some bands that we like that we're playing with. This kid Basil records the drums for us. We record on location in Phil's basement, and things aren't sounding that great. Like they sound okay, but we're like
tempo.
No, it's just the sound. Like we weren't getting the sound that we wanted. Yeah, there were some mistakes, but like it was always like, oh, we'll fix it in the mix. And then it turned into we'll fix it in the mix. Oh no. So we record all this stuff with Basil. He decided, like, we're thinking that maybe he's going to mix it, maybe we're going to mix it. We're not sure about that end of things. I think we finally decided that he would mix it for us. He started mixing the tracks, and his computer went down.
Oh my god! Just never fucking ends, man.
Yeah, just curse upon curse. It was like his basement flooded, his computer went down.
Oh god!
And those are the tracks that, I mean, we ended up recovering everything. We ended up mixing it, but those are the tracks that ended up being the Spectral Rider album. Phil went on to be in the band Revocation, which that was what Cryptic Warning became.
Which is crazy, yeah. Which I'm a big fan of Ravage, and I knew that. I was like, that's yeah. Wow, yeah.
He was an incredible drummer from the beginning. Like, and we thought he had been drumming since he was like 3 years old. We found out that in the time that he was in the band, he'd only been drumming for a year. So when he recorded that album, he was only playing drums for a year. He was playing like crazy double bass stuff and stuff that
some
that holds
prodigy
up
level stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. And actually Basil, who was just like the annoying high school kid at the time, he went on to be in Power Glove. He's the drummer of Power Glove, nice. So well-known video game cover band. So yeah, we've touched success along the way. Even though nobody knows who we are, but yeah. So that was the story of that first album. It just didn't come out the way we wanted.
Yeah.
Bass player ended up quitting in the middle of it, the bass player we had at the time, because he didn't like his bass sound and he wasn't really learning the songs correctly. And yeah, it was a nightmare album. Yeah, interesting. So that's so funny, man, because you were talking about like the scene and stuff in the Boston scene. And I always kind of, I grew up in Boston, and I always kind of like I felt like there wasn't ever a metal scene here. I thought the scene was always in Worcester, because Worcester has the Palladium, it has Ralph's, has the Vernon, Electric Haze. There's a lot of great venues over there, and there's a few others I'm missing. But did you do Worcester a lot? Were you mainly Boston? And I'd love to know, what's your opinion on the current state of the scene versus where it used to be? If there ever was a scene, it was definitely in Worcester. It wasn't until we discovered Ralph's, or Ralph's discovered us, and it was mostly through Chris, who used to run Metal Thursdays, that we ever felt we could play a decent local show. Because in the Boston area, it was all hardcore punk bands. You play with ska bands, you play with and then you play with new metal bands when new metal came out in the early 2000s.
Sucks.
But yeah. That's all there was. And you play these awful shows where people would come to see their friends play, so it wasn't really a scene per se. We weren't getting people in metal jackets, and that didn't happen until Ralph's, until we figured out that there was some scene there, and I think that grew out of Chris's band Acephalus. He had an in at the Palladium because Acephalus' drummer was, I think, the door guy there. So they would get on a lot of the death metal shows when they came in. I saw them open for Armored Saint. So they would play the big shows. And they were actually, getting to some point of notoriety locally, but they ended up breaking up. But he continued on with the Ralphs thing, where he started booking Ralphs, and he would get all the underground bands that wouldn't play the Palladium. And he put together the longest running metal series in history, basically. It was on for like 15, 20 years or something. Every Thursday we'd have these metal shows. And we were lucky enough that he invited us a few times. So
yeah, and Ralph's is still going strong. Great venue. I'd love to get into The End of Tomorrow. Great record. I'd love to know how much of that was recorded fresh for that record. Or is it all just stuff from the back catalog at the time?
No, actually, similar to this situation, it was pretty good mix of fresh and ancient stuff. I think.
What's the ratio?
50-50, maybe.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Or maybe even 60-40 new stuff.
Huh.
Songs like Grapes of Wrath and the Shattered songs, which were actually Eli formed a side project with some guys. And that's how we got the rhythm section for that band. So Phil ended up leaving, and he concentrated on Revocation, which was turning into Revocation at that time. So we were without a rhythm section again. And Eli's always forming these side projects. He's doing black metal side projects, or he's doing completely traditional metal side projects. He had some kids he knew. He put together this band called Shattered, and they wrote about 4 songs. They recorded a semi-demo, but they never even finished the demo. And we were like, well, this drummer's pretty good. We should just take those guys. So George, GTB, he came out of that band, joined Ravage. Howie, the bass player, also joined, and that became like that classic. That was the Metal Blade lineup. That was the band that got signed. So it was us, them, and we actually took 2 of their songs, which were The Nightmares Hold and
really?
In Shattered Dreams. Those were Shattered songs. And I just wrote lyrics for them because they didn't really have lyrics.
Yeah.
They were just instrumental stuff.
Really interesting. So at what point did you decide to re-record the debut? Was it just like every year, was it like, fuck?
We really should have recorded the debut. Yeah. I mean, like, we wanted to record it before then. We wanted to record it after then. We wanted to keep whenever we had a chance. I think the idea was like, hey, Metal Blade, you want to put this out? Like, we were going to get that done. We had a bunch of, we had some new songs we were working on, and maybe that was going to be a bonus CD on a double CD with Metal Blade or something. But Metal Blade thing didn't really work out. We put out the album. We did a tour, a disastrous tour, and then.
So you referenced it before. So why was this tour so disastrous?
That's the whole story in and of itself.
Oh,
we could
God.
spend a whole blog on that, but
I can only assume. Touring could be so fucking hell. It really can.
Yeah. We're not a band that's ever. Oh, jeez. We got signed, which was completely out of the blue. I was ready to put that album
Very
out.
deserved, also.
Well, thank you.
Also with the hell, I just want to say, you guys have gone through such hell, and I'm glad the music, greatness comes from suffering, and it really shows with this band's discography, because I feel like there's not really like a bad record. And every album is just really, really great, especially with the track list and the consistency of quality, especially on this new record. Every track is just like, it's like, fuck, when does this album get bad, or when is there like a mid track? But honestly, every album, it's been so consistently good. So I do want to say that, because I feel like we've talked about so much like pain and suffering in this band, but I just want to state that it's really awesome that for everything you guys went through, the music has come out so great.
Well, it's great to hear that too, because you don't always get a lot of accolades when you're in a traditional metal band. You don't. Aside from maybe some reviews or postings on a message board, which can be good and bad, you're never sure how the music's reaching people. So it is great to hear
Yeah.
that somebody's enjoying it. And we've always strived for quality, versus quantity. And we only have a couple of albums, so a lot of these songs just end up, fermenting. They're on the compost pile of of metal riffs and stuff, and that stuff. We work on it, and hopefully the recordings will hold up as something cool that people like in the metal future.
I think they for sure has, and this newest record, Spider on the World, is fantastic. It's really awesome to see you guys working on the next one. Hopefully you'll have a smooth recording process at some point in the band's future. I think you guys are Boston legends, classics in the Boston scene, if it exists. But before we end things off, I'm just curious, what's the best way for people to stay in touch with the band?
Well, there's always Facebook, but ravagetheearth.com is still our .com, which has been around for forever. So ravagetheearth.com will always be a link to everything we're doing. If Facebook falls or MySpace or whatever, ravagetheearth.com.
Awesome. And if we missed anything, just to give you the floor to plug whatever, what's the future of the band look like in terms of maybe gigs, future material, anything coming up you want to promote?
Well, we're trying to get on shows. We're trying to put together good shows locally, and also, if we can get on a festival or something. So we're looking into that, if we'd appreciate any opportunities that are out there.
Yeah, for sure. Kick-ass fucking band. Al, thank you so much for being on, man. Really, really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, man. This was awesome.
It's been a great conversation. I'm Brandon Battick, and this is Disturbing the Priest.